not everyone has that opportunity, though, do they, Finn, to go and live in the country where they speak the language that they're learning? But there are other options.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that actually brings us on nicely to the second, I guess it's not a quote, but a part that I've taken from a book that I read recently. And that book was The Art of Resilience by Ross Edgley, who was the first person to swim around Great Britain. And he didn't want to touch land the whole time. So he was doing 6-hour shifts, so 6 hours on, 6 hours off, in order to work with the very strong tides that we have around our island. And I can't remember how many days it took him, but it was a lot. And he was more than halfway round, probably about 2/3 of the way round. And he received news that his dad got really bad cancer. He developed this really bad cancer, and he wanted to just immediately cancel the swim and go home. But his brother had told him, had passed on a message from his dad saying that he doesn't want him to cancel the swim. The only way he wants to see him is by him finishing the swim and seeing him on the beach at the finish. And the bit that I'm actually talking about, that's just the wider context, sorry, but the bit I'm talking about is there was a really bad storm and the boat had to take shelter in a harbor for 3 days. And he couldn't go on land because he would break his challenge. So he was just stuck on a tiny boat for 3 days, being annoyed that he couldn't make progress on the swim. But the lesson was to control the controllables and just remember that you cannot control the uncontrollables. So although he could not control the fact that he was stuck in that small harbor on the small boat, he could control how much rest he was getting, his nutrition, his stretching, his not overthinking, so his mental state towards his recovery. So he focused as hard as he could on that, so that when he could go back to swimming, when he could control the controllable of how far he was swimming each day, he could then make more progress than if he hadn't focused on the rest, the recovery, the nutrition, all of that.
Yeah, and I think that ties really nicely to our kind of idea and ethos with Tea Break, and especially our conversation classes. We're talking about, we've both had the privilege and the benefit, me and Finn, of having been able to travel to different countries in which they speak the language that we have been learning. And not everyone has that luxury, has that benefit, and it's out of their control, right? The ability to get a plane ticket to the UK, get a visa in 10 seconds to the US, wherever, is not something that everyone has in their control. But we'd hope, and we structure the club in this way, that most people, or a majority of people, can access the internet on their phone or their laptop or their iPad or their computer, whatever, and they can subscribe to Tea Break English Club, and they can have conversations at a low, reasonable price with 2 native speakers online. And that is something you can control, and is something that is would be highly beneficial for your English language journey. And